Hello, thank you for joining me today. It has been a while since I've done a casual chatty style video, and so that is what we are going to do today. I'm going to talk a little bit about what my life has been looking like lately now that I am officially an indie deck creator. This is the Spacious Tarot, the deck I co-created with Annie Rugit. It is real. It exists. I'm holding it in my hands right now. We have spent the past month and a half mailing them out to Kickstarter backers and people who pre-ordered via our website. So my life is very different now than it was probably the last time that I made a video. It's also a new year. So as I'm filming this, it's January, what is the date today? January 22nd, 2020. A lot of people are probably past this sort of wave of New Year energy now that it's the later part of January. But I feel like it's something that's still really relevant for me because the decks arrived mid-December. And so again, I've spent the past month or so in somewhat of a shipping frenzy. It was quite intense. It was a lot of work. I was working a lot of hours shipping out decks. So I feel like I'm just now reaching this place where I'm caught up on orders. I'm now sending them out as they come in instead of trying to get caught up, which is really lovely. And I have a little more space now to think about this new year, what it's going to look like collectively, as well as what it's going to look like for me on a personal level. If you have been following me for a while, you may have noticed that I'm a bit like a broken record when it comes to my thoughts about creating content online. It's been at least a year now that I've gotten less consistent. So I've been a blogger for over 5 years. I've been running my tarot business for over 5 years. The first few years, I was very consistent about putting out content. I was always either doing blog posts or doing videos, and then somewhere along the line, I kind of fell off of it. One of the reasons is that I wanted and needed more space to devote to other projects, like, creating a tarot deck. But there's also been just some weird things going on in my head about this process. All of this is a very long-winded preface of saying something that I'm kind of nervous to say because I don't want to end up disappointing myself. But one of my intentions going forward for the rest of 2020 is to find what a groove looks like for me of sharing things online. I really want to get back into my blog. I've been saying that for so long, but I've really been neglecting my blog. And one of the things that I'm telling myself in order to work on this intention is that there doesn't need to be pressure around this. That's one of the reasons that the first sort of official piece of content that I'm creating for 2020 is this video. I wanted this to be a relaxed and casual conversation, and I'm trying to give myself permission to take that approach to creating things online, to let it be something that can come very naturally and doesn't have to have pressure attached to it. There's enough things in this world and in our lives that have pressure attached to it. So I want to find a way to continue to share things online that works for me but doesn't feel that like urgency and that pressure. I have read that the research that's out there around, intentions and goals, not only for the new year, but just in general, states that one of the best things you can do to help yourself actually have a really good chance of reaching your goal or your intention is to state it out loud and also to write it down. This is hard for me because I feel kind of silly because I know like nobody really cares. But I want to put it out there that going forward for the rest of 2020, my intention is to create and share something on a weekly basis, like I used to do in the past. It may not always be a masterpiece. I want to have that room for it to be spacious and casual, but I do really want to get back into sharing, so I think I'm at that place where I have to actually have that as I don't always like the word goal, that's why I keep saying goal or intention. But I want to put it out there. Even if nobody cares, I'm going to put it out there and say it out loud in this video. The rest of 2020, going forward, that is my goal, is to share something weekly. Maybe it's on my blog, maybe it's a video, whatever it is. It's funny that I started talking about that because the next thing that's coming to mind for me is that my theme word for 2020 is disengage. Working with a theme word, or some people call it a power word, is very common in the spiritual community, and I think even in the broader population at large. I've been doing it for probably at least 5 years, and there's some years where I sort of just fall off and I choose the word at the beginning of the year, but as the year goes on, it just sort of slips out of my awareness. But last year for 2019, my word was clean, and I did continue to reflect on that word and sit with that word throughout the year, and there was a lot of layers of meaning that came forward for me with that one, and it was incredibly useful to have that word. And the word disengage came to me at the end of 2019, and I felt this very strong knowing this needs to be your word for 2020. Then, as 2020 started, I had so much resistance to continuing forward with that word disengage. I was like, well, what if I choose a different word? And there is this knowing within me that that resistance is just that, it's resistance. I need to be working with this word disengage. I'm actually really into the idea of paradox and the lessons that are available within paradox. So I do think there's already this interesting paradox happening for me, that I feel this very strong knowing that my word for 2020 is disengage, but at the same time, in somewhat of a paradoxical sense, I also feel this calling to re-engage with my blog and with sharing things online. But I don't think those two things are at odds with each other, because one of the ways that this concept of disengage is coming up for me for 2020 is that I do think, maybe largely because of social media, that over the past few years, I have found myself absorbing other people's opinions, other people's perspectives on things, more than I find myself really solidifying and exploring within myself what my perspectives and what my views are. So I'm hoping that I can be in a place in 2020 where I can re-engage with creating content as a way and as a means to explore myself, instead of just like regurgitating what someone on Instagram said or what the current hot take is on Twitter. I want to have a place where I can really think about what I feel, what I believe on a deep level. So I know it's usually the case, we are much more aware of ourselves and much more noticing our flaws and the things that we don't think we're doing right more than anybody else is. But I do feel like I owe maybe a bit of an apology to anyone who has been subscribed to my YouTube channel or my newsletter, and I keep coming in and saying, because this isn't the first time that I've come in and said, I want to re-engage with this, and then I keep not doing it. But I do feel a shift with things in 2020, and although I will be disengaging in many ways, I will also, by disengaging, be, I think, having space to re-engage. And even though it might sound silly, or even though a lot of people might not notice how frequently I share things online, I did want to put that out there to hold myself accountable, that I do want to be sharing things weekly in 2020. If you are not yet on my mailing list, my email list, that's the best way to see whatever flight of fancy I'm taking and whatever I'm creating at any given time. I'm going to try to re-engage with that email list in 2020 as well. So I'll put a link somewhere in the video description to my website, carriemallon.com, where you can get on the mailing list. On that note, another exciting thing that I've done recently that I actually haven't really talked too much about because I've been in the Spacious Tarot zone is that I created a free video course, which is essentially an introduction to tarot. It's called Foundational Tarot. Again, it is free, and you can get that just by signing up for my mailing list. It will happen automatically. You'll sign up for the mailing list and you'll get an email with all of the information on accessing the course. I'm actually really proud of Foundational Tarot because although it is fairly brief, I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but I think it's something like an hour and a half long, the video. I did do my best to pack as much value as I could into that course. I wanted it to be something that you could work with if you were completely new to tarot, total beginner, but I also wanted it to be something you could work with if you have some experience with tarot already, but maybe you just resonate with my perspective, or maybe you haven't yet found a framework or a course that completely resonates with you. This is just another option for you to try. So if that is of interest to you, please do check it out. I really did enjoy creating it, and I actually feel pretty proud of it. There's always more to say. I think I could expand it into a very lengthy course, but we got a pretty good start in there. So check it out if that is of interest. Another thing I am looking forward to in 2020, this is a little ways down the line from the time I'm filming this, but in July, I believe July 24th, and I'll put the exact dates in the description of the video, but there is going to be a Witch City Tarot Conference happening in Salem, and I am going to be attending. I am looking forward to it. I visited Salem for the first time back in 2017, and it's such an interesting place. The history is fascinating, and just the vibe of the community and the feeling of the town is unique. It's like no place I've ever been. And how perfect will it be to have a tarot conference in Salem? So I will be attending as many of the presentations as possible, and I will be also selling the Spacious Tarot. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not sure how long this video is already getting, and I don't want it to be incredibly boring, although I suppose if it is, you can just click away. But I did want to take some time and also just talk about what life has been like so far now that I am, again, officially an independent tarot deck creator. This is going to be very off the cusp. In the future, I want to make a blog post with more details and put a little more organization into talking about specifically the process of doing a Kickstarter. I've had a lot of people ask me questions about the Kickstarter, and I actually told people months ago, right after the Kickstarter ended, that I would be writing a blog post about it. That ended up not happening, surprisingly enough, again with me and my inconsistency with creating content. But now that we're further down the line, I'm actually glad I didn't write the post back then, because although the campaign was done, the fulfillment process had not yet happened. And now I've done everything. I've done the campaign, I've done the fulfillment process, so I do want to put some thought and also talk to Annie about it, because obviously she's very involved with all of this as well, and get some kind of cohesive, like, you know, advice or, you know, words of wisdom I can give people who are working on their own tarot deck Kickstarter. But for this video, I just want to keep it a little more casual, and I think that some of the main things I want to talk about are what has surprised me, or what I perhaps wish I would have considered more about what it looks like to be an indie deck creator, because this is how the experience was for me, and I think this is common with other deck creators that I've talked to, is we go into this with this beautiful dream and we want to create a tarot deck. That's what we want to do. But there's so many other things that you end up doing besides just creating a tarot deck. You end up having to learn about marketing. You end up having to learn about taxes. You end up having to learn about cardstock. You end up learning about international business relations and customs when you are shipping decks internationally, and how to package decks, and how to deal with decks that arrive damaged, and how to balance your time between replying to emails and doing marketing on social media and doing whatever other responsibilities you have going on in your life when you are doing things independently as a tarot deck creator, or I suppose as a lot of other types of business ventures, you're doing a lot yourself, and it is a lot to take on. Now, I don't want any of that to sound like I'm complaining, because it is a lot of work, but it's all work that I've chosen, and it is all work that is in service of the bigger vision, which is creating the deck, having the deck out in the world, and having people ultimately benefit and find transformation from working with the deck. Because it is such a big undertaking, I think the most important thing for me has been not feeling alone in this process. So Annie and I have gone into this all along as a collaboration where it's more than just, you know, artist and deck creator. We're essentially in business together. So we together are dealing with the, you know, shipping and printing and all of these processes. So having either a collaborator or someone who can be there as a support for you is super, super important, and I would absolutely recommend that to everyone. Trying to do the entire process by yourself, I think, would be a way to burn out very, very quickly. There's also some really great information out there from people who have created their own decks and gone through the process already. I have felt very lucky because I have a few friends, people I know through the tarot community, who have created decks and were willing to, you know, email back and forth and help me work through some of the questions that I had about the process. And then Benabel Wen actually created a course with a really amazing in-depth book talking about her process of creating her deck. Sadly for me, the course did not come out until we were almost done. We were essentially like at the end of our Kickstarter campaign, but I still purchased the course right away because Benabel had so many amazing blog posts that I had referenced to get wisdom about the deck creation process that I wanted to buy the course, if for no other reason than to support her for sharing what she had shared on her blog. And there were so many helpful things in that course. So I definitely recommend seeking out other deck creators, seeking out courses, getting as much support as you can, because it can be a big undertaking, but there's other people who have gone through it before and that are willing to be kind of a guide for you. If you are watching this and you are creating a deck or want to create a deck and actually have specific questions, you're welcome to leave them under the video, because as I said, I do want to create more of a structured blog post or video or something talking about the process and giving advice. So if you have any questions, let me know and I'll do what I can to try to help. All of that said, the main thing right now with where I am in this process is the need to allow myself some space to integrate, because it has been kind of a whirlwind, like I talked about, with the decks coming in and getting everything shipped out. It's somewhat settling down now, so I have a little more time to get back connected with my spiritual practice, and with giving myself time to actually integrate the fact that we did this. We did it. The deck is out in the world and people are working with it. It still doesn't quite feel real to me. So I suppose that's maybe another piece of advice I would give, is give yourself the opportunity to take some time and really integrate the magnitude of what you have done. And I guess that could be true, you know, of any big thing you do in life, not just creating a deck. If you accomplish something amazing, give yourself a chance to really bask in that and really process that. That's what I'm still trying to do for myself right now. All right, I am going to leave it there for now. I am looking forward to continuing to process and integrate everything that's coming up for me, and to disengage in certain ways and re-engage in certain ways as 2020 moves forward. So I appreciate you listening, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you.